Joining us now, Sheriff David Clarke. David Clarke with us now, America's Sheriff, also Senior Advisor to WeBuildTheWall.us. Sheriff Clarke, great to have you, man.
Thanks a lot, John. I appreciate it.
So you got banned from Twitter for life. True or false?
Yeah, Twitter can shove it. Look, you know this, John, about me, and your listeners do as well. I refuse to buckle to social pressure, to social signaling, or to group pressure. And right now, if you're not singing the government line about this what is basically the flu, you're ostracized. They shut you down, call you all kinds of names, and I'm just not wired that way to buckle down to that sort of pressure. Look, nobody has convinced me that what the government is doing right now is truly necessary. All right, I still believe this is based on panic and fear mongering. They're not giving us any answers, and I'm really surprised in my fellow Americans that we're not pushing back more against this stuff and asking questions, because we're not getting answers. We're getting a lot of platitudes. We're getting a lot of cliches, things like, well, we have to do this out of an abundance of caution. It's the right thing to do. We have to do something. It's a minor inconvenience. No, it's not a minor inconvenience. Gosh darn it. They crashed the American economy. They've basically made the American people prisoners in their own homes. They're creating hysteria. They're scaring the hell out of them. This is not something that we have to do. And then here's another one they like to say: to do nothing would be irresponsible. John, I'm one of those that thinks that what they're doing right now is irresponsible. They don't have enough data, a big enough sample, if you will, to make a valid assessment about what is basically the flu. And that's not my assessment when I call it the flu. That's what the doctors initially call this. Those doctors are being shunned. And if you recall, John, the original, when this first came out, when this first broke, we're talking 2 weeks ago, most medical doctors that were interviewed said, hey, look, you know what? There's a one thing you can do to deal with this. The smartest thing is to wash your hands. Wash your hands. Wash your hands. That
Wash
makes
your hands.
sense.
Wash your hands.
Okay, that made sense. But we've gone from washing your hands to collapsing the economy to telling people you're now going to be a prisoner in your own home, shelter in place. You can't go anywhere. You can't find toilet paper. This is ridiculous, John, and nobody's pushing back. Well, I'm here to continue to push back, and I know, and I can't prove this today, but I know in the long run, when we look back at this, we'll find out much of what the government did was not necessary.
Well, here's why they're doing it, right? There's three reasons. One, companies are doing it because they're afraid of litigation, right? Nobody wants to get sued because they held an event, somebody got sick, grandma died, now they're sued for $8 bajillion. That's what really started this whole thing with companies. But now it's like I predicted 5 days ago. I said every mayor and governor is going to declare these emergency powers, and they're going to one-up each other. First, it was no gatherings over 100. Then it was no 50. Then it was no 10. Now it's you got the guy in Hoboken. You got the guy in Hoboken one-upping De Blasio in Manhattan in the five boroughs in New York City that shut every restaurant and bar down. Who now has a edict where you have to stay at home. It's called, what is it? A shelter in. What the hell is that? It's like you can't leave your home. If you do, you're going to get a fine by a cop. Like, what? Excuse me? Like you can't leave your home to do what? I mean, go to the bathroom outside or go buy something at the CVS. Like, what are you talking about? You can't go to work? I mean, you got to be kidding me. But this is going to go from that to you have to stay home to you have to quarantine your pets. You can't take them out for a walk. You can't go to a dog park. It's all coming, and I mean, come on, man. The whole thing with closing everything down is they're self-fulfilling, tanking the economy. Now we're talking about a $1.2 trillion bailout. But hey, guess who's got their hands out? All the lobbyists, Sheriff Clarke, came out yesterday to Washington like cockroaches when you turned out the lights. Sure. Now the casinos want bailouts. Airlines who have been squeezing you in like a sardine and wouldn't give you a peanut, paying top dollar, right? Every plane sold out. Right now they want to bail out. Cruise lines want to bail out. Casinos want to bail out. The next thing we're going to hear, Goldman Sachs needs a bailout, right? I mean, and it went from 8 trillion, 8 billion to 50 billion to 750 billion to now 1 trillion. Now it's 1.4 trillion. That's what we have.
Well, this is what I'm talking about, though, John. You understand this. I know your listeners understand it, but there's not enough pushback. Look, you can only do this for so long. The government can only do this to the American people for so long, and then there will be this organic pushback. People are going to say, "The hell with this! I have to go outside. I want to get out of this house," and they're going to start to engage in some activities. And then I think what we'll have is that reverse cascade where businesses will say, "Hey, people on the streets, why don't we open up? Why don't we get back up on our feet? Why don't we start doing things again?" And say to themselves, "The hell with the government." Because, like I said, nobody has convinced me that what we're doing here is truly necessary. And they didn't do their due diligence. When you have a crisis, I don't know if this is a manufactured crisis or if it is a real crisis. I just don't know. I haven't made that decision, but I'm not getting the answers I want. But one of the things you do when you deal with a crisis, rule number one, don't make it worse. Well, they did, because the cure here for their crisis is going to turn out to be, and I said it's going to take some time for this to come to fruition, the cure is going to be worse than the disease. You know that phrase? Don't make the cure worse than the disease. Well, that's what I think is going to happen here. So, they didn't ask themselves. Nobody took the time. Nobody's thinking right now. And I like that you said, everyone's trying to outdo the other one now. Mayors and governors and city councils and people at the federal level, they're all trying to outdo each other. Oh, you said 50? We're going to make it 10. Oh, you said 10? We're going to have people shelter in place. Oh, you said this. On and on and on.
No, that's exactly what's going to happen. Now you got Bernie Sanders yesterday saying, "Hey, any company that gets part of the bailout needs to be nationalized." So basically, I own a bunch of radio stations, right? So if I apply for a short-term loan from the SBA to get me through payroll or whatever, if we need money, now I have to give part of my ownership up to the federal government. So Bernie's like, "Hey, we had a crisis. Hey, time for communism. What a great opportunity this is." I mean, he actually said this yesterday. Any company that gets any money needs to be partially owned by the government of the United States, the federal government.
We got to ask. Right, we have to ask more questions about what the heck's truly going on here. And one of the things that I've asked, too, is if we overcorrect, what long-term damage will result? These are the things the people in charge should be asking themselves before they come out with this sky is falling fear-based policies. What long-term damage will we do if we overcorrect? What do we truly need to do here that makes sense and that's rational, and instead everything's going haywire? But nobody's thinking right now. Not enough people. Let me put it that way. Not enough people are thinking right now, because they would be asking the same questions I am, and then I wouldn't be out here as a man alone on an island, which I don't care anyway, because I don't follow the crowd. We'd get better answers, or at least we'd force these people to think before they act. Everyone thinks that this is. Too many people think that this is a matter of, it's just going to be a few days. Remember, John, this started out, too, as first, about 10 days, 15 days. Now I'm hearing 45. Some people are saying 6 months. Some people are saying to the end of the year that this is going to have to happen. There is no way on God's given earth that you're going to force the American people. I think 45 days is going to be too much in terms of what the American people will start to push back at. But we'll see. There's no way you're going to be able to tell people to shelter in place for 90 days. There's no way the American people are going to put up with that crap, John. So I'm waiting for that moment, that when a critical mass of people say, that's enough. That's enough. No, we have to start doing some reasonable things. This stuff has happened before. In 2009, with the swine flu, 60 million Americans were infected. 60 million. That's a lot. 275,000 were hospitalized because of the swine flu in 2009, 12,000 dead. We didn't shut the government down. We didn't shut the economy down. We didn't force people to self-quarantine or order them to shelter in place for the swine flu. And the vaccine is now available for the seasonal flu we're talking about. Do you know that 40% of the American people don't even get the flu shot? So what I'm saying is, and I don't care that they don't. I do, but I don't care if they don't. But I'm saying, well, then how important is this? Was this worth crashing the economy when really, this stuff happens every year? In 2017, 2018, 48 million people, 48 million Americans had the H1N1 flu. It resulted in 31,000 deaths. We didn't crash the economy over the H1N1 flu. We don't do that with these seasonal flus, particularly. And this is from the medical community. I didn't make this up. They're saying that typically it affects the elderly and people who have a compromised immune system. Okay, that's a piece of data. Why don't we work on that instead of trying to figure out, well, who's got it? You cannot test everybody in the United States, John. That's not even doable.
Mm-hmm. Unbelievable.
Not to mention it's a waste of time because there's a certain amount of the population, and this is what the medical community has to convince these government officials of. This stuff, there's a risk population. You deal with that. This thing is not going to affect, for the most part, the average person. So why are you going to test everybody when it may turn out that 60% of the American people never even got this thing? You wasted a test kit, for heaven's sake.
John Fredericks Radio Network. We're with Sheriff David Clarke, America's Sheriff. He's also Senior Advisor, WeBuildTheWall.us. I tell you what, Sheriff, I was coming up here today. I had about a 2-hour drive between 4 and 6 a.m. to Richmond, right? So I've got on I got Bloomberg News on and other things as I'm coming up 2 hours a.m. Not many cars on the road, obviously, at that hour. But one report after the other was all this doomsday reporting. I mean, it was incredible.
Yeah.
And these were legitimate next. Bloomberg Radio is a legit station, okay? So, and I had them on for 2 hours, and it's not their fault. But it's like doomsday reporting for 2 hours. This could last until the end of 2020. We could have 20% unemployment. It could go on for beyond 2020. It could be the end of the economy. People are going to be dying in the street. 22 million people in America could die. I mean, all this stuff based on what? Like, what is this based on? Nothing. It's just that somebody, and it was because the secretary said yesterday, well, if we don't act, you could get 20% unemployment. Well, what he was doing is he was selling his $1.4 trillion plan to Republicans. I mean, come on. There's not going to be 20% unemployment. That's 1 out of every 5 people. This is doomsday stuff going on, and telling me, borders are going to be closed. But hey, you know what? What about the southern border? I guess the next time a caravan comes in, I guess Bernie Sanders and the other Dems will be saying, hey, let them in. Don't quarantine them. They can, hey, it doesn't matter if they have the flu or not. Hey, let them in. Let them get tested first. In fact, put them in front of the line. Americans are going to have to wait. We got a caravan from Colombia coming in, right? That's next.
Yeah, well, everyone's just parroting everybody else now. And like I said, if Bloomberg News is a legitimate source, they probably realize that if they talk like David Clarke is talking right now, they'll get taken off the air. Okay, and all I'm doing is probing. It's all I'm doing is asking questions. And I'm not suggesting that we should do nothing. We shouldn't do this, number one. And if we're going to do anything, we should do something reasonable, not unreasonable. And I think what they're doing right now is too much. I believe right now that there's a segment of this population, because we have too many sheep in this population. There are a segment of this population that if reports got out that if you went outside your house and jumped up and down on one leg for 10 minutes and you won't catch coronavirus, you could look out your window, John, and you would see people doing this. I'm asking people to think. I'm asking them to think critically, and I'm telling them to push back on this stuff and just demand some answers. I'm just demanding answers, but now all of a sudden I'm the bad guy. Well, too bad, because I'm going to continue asking the questions and continue to poke and prod until we get people to start talking reasonably. I'm reasonable right now. I'm saying we need to do something reasonable, not just anything. And what they're doing right now is, like you said, everyone's trying to outdo the other guy, right? And this is where we're at. I didn't think that they could do much more. I 4 days ago I said, well, they pretty much shut everything down. But every day something new pops up. And I go, I forgot about that. Oh, yeah, I didn't know. They could tell you to shelter in place. Now they can order you to. Now they can order everything. It's just, it goes on and on and on. The madness has to stop.
You are so right. Sheriff David Clarke, thank you for being with us. Thank you for that perspective. And this is becoming kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. One thing I just want to say, I was on a conference call yesterday with Senator Mark Warner, reporters conference call. And it was actually, it was outstanding. I want him to keep doing it. There's the second one he had. The first one was Trump bash, and I kind of got upset by the whole thing. It didn't make any sense. The one he had yesterday was really good. It was informative. But one of the reporters said, in the last 2 days in Virginia, the spike in virus has gone down. Like on a percentage basis, it's gone down. Is that a good sign? Is that good news? Maybe this, everybody staying out of school, maybe it's help. Maybe we're ahead of the curve. Is this good? So Warner says, well, we're always thankful for good news, but that's because not everybody's been tested. Once you get all the tests, it's going to be bad. Everybody's going to get sick. It's going to be millions of people. And so it was, instead of him, I was waiting for him to say, you know what? It could be an encouraging sign. Instead, let's throw more gas on the fire and say, even though it is coming down, we don't have all 327 million people tested, even though they don't have to be tested. Sheriff, I'm out of time. Thank you for your perspective.